The Palisades Interstate Park in New Jersey is excited to share the following video with our public. We endeavor to preserve historic memories of our riverfront and a trade that has traditionally occurred along the Hudson River for generations. Bergen County has generously partnered with us to complete this project. In addition, we thank Frank Florio for agreeing to sit down for an oral history. Enjoy.
I was born in 1944, Englewood Hospital. I was raised in Alpine from when I came home from the hospital till I believe around 20-ish when I got married and left home and went out on my own. Looking back, I think I had a very good childhood. It was normal like most kids, but we had the advantage of living in a town that was, what would you say, rustic. A lot of trees, not stores, not a lot of paved roads, things like that. So we had the ability to walk through the woods. The older people would teach us how to hunt, things of that nature. And I always felt fortunate because I had the Palisades as my backyard. It was like my backyard. Always coming down to the river, ride our bikes down, come down, walking down, or whatever. Spent a lot of time on the river as a kid growing up. A lot of time as an adult as well, but. Okay, my mother was a typical stay-at-home mom, housemaker. My father owned a gas station, and I had two sisters, one older, one younger. Every year, excuse me, around the 17th of March, my father would leave, have somebody work for him at the service station, and come down to the river shad fishing. And that ended around May 28th. Those were the great days. I used to love to come down. I can remember back to maybe 4 years old. From there up, I loved coming down. Every weekend I could spend down here, I did. Doing what kids do, going from here to there, talking with people, that kind of thing. But I never realized back then how much I loved the river. I learned that as I got older.
Where did you go to school?
Tenafly High. Well, let me back up. Grew up in Alpine, went to Alpine school from kindergarten to 6th grade. 7th through 12th, I went to Tenafly High School, and I graduated from Tenafly. One of the, I don't know what you would call it, interesting or great things that I thought was a great thing is that my Aunt Annie taught me as a kindergarten teacher, 1st and 2nd grade. I had my aunt as my teacher, which there was only like 6 in our class. Well, I learned some basic carpentry. My Uncle Tony and Uncle Louie were carpenters. My father had done some auto repairs, so I became interested in auto repairs. I learned a lot about the river and fishing. I did that many years, so I learned a lot about that. My main job was fireman, so of course I had a lot of schooling and learning, construction, fires, extinguishment, that kind of thing. I had a very broad education, basic jobs and things of that nature.
How did the Palisades impact your life?
I would say it impacted it greatly. From as far back as I can remember, I used to love to come down. When I was here spending the day doing whatever, I hated to go home. I hated to leave the park. As I got older, when I started fishing, I spent more time, of course. That was great for me, but it wasn't great for my wife. In fact, I almost got divorced from fishing, because fishing takes so much time and energy and whatnot. You're really never home. So I made a choice, either keep fishing and be single or stay married and not fish. So I decided to stay married and not fish. I don't know if that was the right decision, but that's the one I made. When I started fishing, I fished in Edgewater. So I met a lot of people at North Hudson Yacht Club. I remember one fellow, Bill Culp, he was a retired Coast Guard captain. He was instrumental in pushing me to get my captain's license, which I appreciated him doing later on. When I thought about it, it was nice. Later, when I moved to the park, over the years, I met most of the park employees, the carpenters, the electricians, whatever they may be. Always got along well with them. They were always friendly, always helpful. I really sometimes made my job easier. I don't remember how many years I was fishing. I met Ron Engel from Edgewater. He and his family had fished all the way back to like when my father and uncles fished during the World War II. I also met a great fella named Bobby Gabrielson. He was from Nyack. He was a New York fisherman, and he was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun talking with him and kibitzing and whatnot.
Go through a normal day as a shad fisherman.
I'll consolidate it because I could probably talk for a couple hours on it. Okay. Let's say we used to set just before low tide, the end of the ebb tide, and then you would go out stake to stake, tie the net, and then when you came back to shore, box up another net. We used to put them in plywood boxes and get them ready to go for the next trip, and then that was pretty much it for setting. So you would go out like 5 hours later, around say 5 o'clock, we'd go out and we'd lift. The idea was to get as many fish out of the net and in the boat separate from the net as possible. Then we get back to shore and take the fish out, bring them over by the scale, weigh them, box them, load them on the truck, get them ready to go to Fulton Market. But the only time you really could like relax a little bit, take it easy is when you set a net, because once you lifted, you had lots and lots of work to do. Had to take the net out of the boat, put it back on the drying rack, spread it out so it dried, get another net ready, which I mentioned, get another net ready to go. Weigh the fish, put them on the truck, take them over to Fulton Market. And again, the more fish you caught, the longer it took to do each one of those steps. And then you repeated it. The biggest change that I see is it's cleaner. When I was young, grammar school age, or when my father stopped fishing in 1952, so I was 8 years old. But prior to that, everything got this green, like a moss type of thing on all the pilings, on all the wood. Anything that stayed in the water for a while got this on there. And that seems to be gone. The water looks cleaner. It's not as greenish looking. I don't know about the debris because when I was fishing, I caught a lot of garbage from, household type garbage. Hopefully that's stopped. People are a little more educated now than they used to be, so hopefully that's pretty well cleaned up. The other thing I noticed was along the seawall wall, which early 90s they built, they used to have a nice concrete walkway. There's a lot of mud in it now. I don't know if it's the water's rising or if there's more silt, more runoff from New York State, but something is putting more mud along the shoreline. Other than that, I don't know. One thing that I'm almost 100% sure of, the American shad fishermen, the Hudson River shad fishermen are out of business forever. You'll never see anybody fishing for shad anymore in the river. Hopefully it'll continue to get cleaner and less debris, and you can't get away from a runoff with silt from New York because the snow, unless they don't have a lot of snow, but when they have heavy snowstorms or heavy rains, there's a lot of silt runs. That's what makes the river silty. It'll never be like a freshwater pond, but it is much better and much cleaner than it used to be. I don't believe there'll be any New Jersey shad fishermen ever again. The outlay to get the equipment and the net and everything is too expensive, and the state right now has it shut down. They're checking on the stocks and trying to refurbish and see how they recover, but New York does all of that. New Jersey doesn't spend any money on the research. New York does it all. My thought on that though is, in New Jersey, we fished with stakes. we can't use a drift net here. There's just too much current and too much debris in the river. And once you get above Haverstraw Bay, they can use a drift net, and the current lays down. So drifting never seemed to me to make you never caught as much drifting as if the net is fixed, okay?
What was the industry of shad fishing like?
Okay, we have to separate that into two parts. Back in the years when my father and my uncles fished from 1930 to 1952 to when I started in the late 70s and went up into 2003. The early fishermen, they had a cabin, they called it a shanty. They actually lived at the river. First beginning of the season, they put up the little building. It had bunk beds, they had a cook, 3 brothers, and usually at least three other people. When I fished, it was myself and my father. And we didn't stay here. We would come down, set the net, hang out. When we were done, we went back home. The difference being, my father said in the beginning, they caught it a little bit, it got better and better. I believe the state of New Jersey said the best year for shad fishing was 1944. There was roughly, I believe, 40, Mr. Quadri, the superintendent, those years there was 41 different camps, they called them. So my father, my uncles, Jordan and Wilson, different people fishing the river. My father said in the fishing season, the river looked like a forest. Every 1,500 feet there was a row. Each row was 1,200 feet, or they could fish up to 1,200 feet. One season they did so well, the next year my father and my uncles set 2 rows. The most fish they caught in one lift was 4,000 pounds. The most fish that I ever caught in my whole career of fishing in one day was 1,200. So there was a big difference. And we had a little spike, it got a little better, and then it dropped off. And in 2010, the state shut it down because they said it had been overfished. When we, getting back to what I mentioned, we boxed the fish. Each box was 100 pounds. Wooden boxes were 100 pounds. When I fished, the market liked the cardboard boxes because they were only 50. I like the wooden ones as well because, you know, less boxes to carry. The state does monitor, but they do it with New York. Again, I mentioned that earlier. New York keeps most of the records, and there is improvement, but they're not satisfied with the improvement that's there. They want it to get a little higher, which is okay, you know. But the sad part to me as a longtime fisherman is that the industry is gone, okay? Because to get a pair of scows to set the poles with, to get the boats, the motors, and, you know, new netting, to find the stakes. I don't know if they can even find the stakes. Nobody's fished in quite a few years now. I don't see anybody spending the time and the money that you would need to put into it. Most of the years I fished for love. I made no money. If I covered my expenses, I was happy, okay? Of course, my father and my uncles at that time, they were doing it as a business. So was a lot of other fellas. The good side of the shad is it's the largest of the herring family, like 5 to 7 pounds, 24 inches or so long, in length. The roe was, what we fished for, the main thing was the roe, because that was like the poor man's caviar. That's the eggs. The problem with the shad cooking is they're so bony. So if you know how to bone them, it's great. Okay, you can get just the meat. But what we used to do, my mother would do, was she'd cook the fish whole and cut it, and then, like, you know, steaks, and then we would just peel the skin and we'd eat it right out of the bones, okay? A lot of people thought it was polluted. It's in the Hudson, excuse me, the Hudson's polluted. But the shad was only in the Hudson for about 2 weeks. There was no pollution in the meat. It's a very nice tasting white meat fish.